wondered as I was reading.
And you're going to have to remember to record next week
Because you're not
because I have a follow-up appointment next week.
okay. So you guys,
Well, maybe it's not next week, but record next week anyway. It's Halloween, and here's my joke to myself is when they made the appointment for Halloween, I said, "Oh yes, I can wear a fright mask," not realizing he was making me one of my very own.
Oh.
But now you look excellent this morning, Sharon.
Yeah, it's still, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the thing for me is that I was just so startled by what happened that because it wasn't really expected.
yeah, yeah.
And now I'm used to seeing this stuff in the mirror, so
And it'll improve.
Yes.
yeah, I wish I could wear my glasses on a regular basis.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, the Pharisee and the tax collector. Let's begin by reading, by reading Amy-Jill's translation of this. Is there anyone who wants to? And remember, you have to be careful because her word order represents the way that it was written rather than the way we have come to hear it. So whoever wants to read, go ahead and pay attention.
I will start. And I'm on first page.
183.
He even said to some of those believing in themselves that they are righteous and despising the rest, this parable. Two people went up to the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by / to himself, these things prayed. O God, I give thanks to you that I am not like the rest of the people, greedy, unrighteous, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast 2 times of the Sabbath, i.e. each week. I give 1/10 of whatever I acquire. Does somebody want to finish, or should I?
Go ahead, finish.
But the tax collector, at a distance standing, did not wish to raise the eyes to heaven, but he beat his breast, saying, O God, be merciful to me, a sinner. To you I say, descending to his house, this one is justified. Alongside that one, there's that, because everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. What a different translation.
Well, let's voice our observations of this translation, leaving out word order, right? Definitely things we've not heard before because of the way she's translated. What are those things?
Everyone gets exalted in the end.
So
I have a puzzlement.
But just a minute, I have a question about what Jane just said. So what are you commenting on, Jane?
Well, the very last paragraph.
Okay.
To you I say, descending to his house, this one is justified alongside that one.
Okay.
Because everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. And both characters do that.
Okay. Thank you. Jane, sign.
I've got a big puzzlement about all this because we've had translation after translation, and each one of them considers that they got it from the original language. And now she comes along with another one. And it really kind of upsets me.
So what one is the one that's right, Jane?
Exactly.
So I'm not sure how you can be upset. I can understand confusion. I can understand which one is which one do I want to read for myself? I can understand those questions.
Frustration.
Well,
frustration, right? That's a good word to
I guess you're right. Frustration is more than.
Yeah. And so what do we do with that? What do we do with multiple translations and multiple expressions of, well, mine must be the right one because it's translated from the original language. It's translated from the very earliest extant text. I mean, so let's puzzle about that, Sharon.
Puzzle about
Well, it's also translated with perhaps,
With what?
ah, it is translated perhaps with a better understanding of what it was to be a Jew in that time. And I
That's
don't
good.
know this for a fact because I can't speak for the other people who've translated these words, but she has immersed herself in Jewish theology and Jewish history
Mhm.
and in the whole idea behind the Mishnah, the rabbinical writings of which are arguments, that whole
Not settled arguments.
right. And so I am interested in what she has to say, also because it's not the first time I've heard that Christians get Pharisees all wrong, that they
Yeah.
just don't understand.
Yeah.
Or, at best, that they just don't understand. And at worst, that they're making it up for what I would call political reasons.
Mhm.
Well, now in the verso of the title page, it says all biblical quotations are taken from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible.
Well,
What-
I think the difference is she translate as the Greek actually reads. And their syntax, Greek syntax, is very different from English syntax. And we're used to reading English syntax, not
Right.
Greek syntax.
But she says all quotations are from this New Revised Standard Version.
I don't think she counts this as quotations. I think she means, like in the middle of a paragraph where she'll
Oh.
quote
Right, yeah.
Ezekiel or
What we just read is her translation.
Right.
Okay.
And then when she refers to some things in the text of her work, and she's quoting from the NRSV. Probably, do you think, is it say the UE too? Or just the
no, this book's too old for the
Old for
UE,
the
I
UE.
think.
I,
quite decided if the UE answers anything or adds anything. Okay, I think Mary Lou's next, and then I think Anne.
back to your original question, I have had to read and reread that opening line multiple times. I still am not sure that it has sunk in what the meaning of that is, because it's even said to some of those believing in themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly what does that mean? And that they are righteous and despising the rest. This parable, would really trust themselves, I guess. I've
Yeah.
read that a million times and I still haven't wrapped my head around it.
What does anybody have at hand?
I'm looking it up.
Translation
I have it.
that we're more familiar with. Okay, so Anne, what do you have?
I have Luke, I have the New Revised Standard Version. I say the same thing Sharon has, 9 through 14.
Yep.
We just want to hear that very first opening statement there. 9, I'm sure it is.
He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. And that part, the word that is a different interpretation, maybe. Trusted in themselves that it was so that they were trusting in themselves rather than in God.
Well, that's what that's what this might say. I don't.
That's probably what many sermons would be on that, trusting in themselves rather than in God's mercy.
What throws me though is the believing.
Yeah, I get that, Mary Lou.
Yeah.
Believing in themselves.
Yeah.
So, any other translations we have at hand?
I can.
What would you like?
What do you got, Sharon?
Pick one, Mary.
I have the New English Bible and I have the Message.
Let's hear the New English. The Message, I think, on this one's just going to screw me up.
Yeah.
I love the Message, but this time I think it's
sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to put it away.
Yeah, exactly. New English, is that what you said, Sharon?
Yes. Oh, huh. And here is another parable that he told. It was aimed at those who were sure of their own goodness and looked down on everyone else.
Wow.
They believed in themselves.
Yeah. So I think one thing, whether or not we understand what this is even saying, one thing that is quite apparent is that these are interpretations, right? These are interpretations, very clearly interpretations. And we need to be, and I would say that Amy-Jill's an interpretation.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how much she tries.
Doesn't she say that first line is Luke's interpretation?
I think she does. So I picked up on page 186 when she actually jumps into that line. What we have previous is the expected anti-Jewish stereotypes. And we know a little bit about that by now, I think. So if somebody wants to raise something in there, please go ahead and do so. So we have.
I have another version.
Oh.
Good news.
Okay.
Jesus also told this parable to people who were sure of their own goodness and despised everybody else.
Okay.
Once there were two men who went up.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need to listen to the rest of it. Yeah. So,
well, on page 186.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking.
The paragraph that starts as with the prodigal and prudent brothers.
Yep.
About a little more than halfway down. What often goes missing is the audience Luke gives to the parable. Those believing in themselves need not refer to the Pharisees. It may well refer to Jesus's own disciples, last mentioned in 1722. The parable is part of a longer discourse in which Jesus gives his followers directly, as well as through several other parables, instructions on their role. Thus, although the parable does speak about regarding others with contempt, the charge is one that could fit any listener.
And then she goes on to, as for believing in themselves or trusting in themselves, that's not the problem. Personal trust isn't a bad thing. And one's knowledge of one's own ability may be the sign of a healthy approach to Torah. Jews could be proud about their fidelity to Torah, just as Christians may well be pleased when they attend church, participate in a mission trip, etc. Paul is blameless, says he's blameless under the law. So, she's not taking issue at all with this whole idea of,
Mhm.
I think that's let's see here. I can't speak for all of us, but I think that's our Scandinavian bent is that here we are and we're not supposed to do that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
We're
Sounds
Yeah,
not.
like
I
them
think
and
Yeah,
Lutheran also.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
I
Jane.
think I think where things go amiss is the point where the Pharisee says, I'm really glad I'm not like everybody else, especially this guy over here.
So
So
that,
how can you be righteous without having an other? You got to
yeah.
have an other to be righteous.
Wow.
Boy.
Yeah, that's a good.
Gail?
I don't think but like
No.
Kathy says, I don't think he's saying that you shouldn't believe in yourself.
Right.
No,
Well, at least that's what Amy-Jill's saying.
right.
Yeah, Amy-Jill saying,
What do you say?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, yes. Well, I kind of did some pros and cons, and I said the Pharisee is the sinner while the tax collector is the saint. But yeah, it's they've got a high regard to each other, the Pharisees, the righteous one. So
And Amy-Jill would, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Amy-Jill would make the case that the Pharisees are not the ones in the wrong at any time.
Right.
That we, sort of the Christian Christians following this time period have done that to the Pharisees,
Mhm.
them in the position. And I think that's what she does with the expected anti-Jewish stereotypes. Um, so yeah, we have these two men. And what do we do with them? On page 187 at the end of this section, the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector may well have been spoken by Jesus and then contextualized by Luke.
Mhm.
I kind of need to get that into our heads.
Mhm.
Yet here Luke helps us by having the parable addressed to the disciples. Thereby, Luke shows us that negatively judging others is not a trait that signals Jewish values. It is rather a human trait,
Mm.
and one to which the followers of Jesus themselves may fall prey. Oh, really?
Who's going to sit at Jesus's right hand?
Yes.
Oftentimes when we read scripture in church and we come across then the Jews did said or whatever, and we have taken to sometimes replacing that with the Judeans. I mean, I think we could replace all of that with those darn people. Yeah, maybe we don't put darn in front of it, but people. This is
Yep.
this is people. This is all of us. This is humanity. But humanity after the fall, and we can have this huge conversation if we want about what the fall was in the first place. But really and truly, it's about worshiping ourselves as if we are God. So humanity is we are the ones who other, right? We are the ones
Yeah.
who.
Because when we read those things in church or we read them in our Bibles, it's as if we're saying that had Jesus been speaking to Gentiles, they would have been better listeners or whatever.
Exactly.
But he didn't know any, or at least not many.
Exactly. Who were Jesus's buddies?
Right. Yeah.
Fellow Jews, right? Yeah. Yeah. And
I just had a freaky thought come in. Luke is Greek. I'm not sure what the Greek and, as in the literally Athens, the Grecians and the Jewish population's relationships were like. Can we assume or can we guess that maybe part of what he's writing comes from a Grecian bias?
Who's the he?
Luke. I just freaky thought just flitted through my head that there is,
It's
because he is
definitely
very obviously putting, like what you said, between Gentiles and Jews, Jewish Judeans. I don't know. I just thought about it.
well, I mean, it has to do, again, it's a question of context.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Well, I think that, oh God, I give thanks to you that I am not like the rest of these people. And I think we do that all the time. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah.
we give thanks that we live life in a common sense way. We've raised our children in safe homes. We aren't involved in domestic violence. We aren't drinking. All these things that we hear about on the news all the time, and we sit there and we give thanks that we're not like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right now, I give thanks I'm not an immigrant,
Yes.
No.
you know.
And in doing so, we give thanks and we separate ourselves
Yeah. Yes.
at the
Yes.
very same time. I mean, I think it raises completely and absolutely the contextual difficulty
Mhm.
of all of this.
Mhm.
I was very taken by the paragraph at the top of page 187, kind of a quarter of the way in. She's talking about works righteousness, and works righteousness is a very Lutheran sort of terminology.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and but it is exactly what it sounds like, right? Do we work for God's grace?
Oh,
Or is God's grace and freely given? So anyway, the Pharisee is in relation to God because he is a Jew under the covenant, not because he does good works. Indeed, his performance of good works is his way of enacting the covenant with God. He does not do good works to earn a place in heaven. He does good works because that is how he understands what God wants him to do.
and isn't that what we are?
Exactly, Anne. Isn't that
That's
exactly?
exactly what we are.
Yeah, yeah. The
Soli fides, soli scriptura. What's the word for faith? Soli fides, soli scriptura, soli gratio, soli grace.
Yeah. So the possum, the problem with his prayer is not in his own personal religiosity, it says. It's in his negatively judging someone else.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think when we hear this parable, we go so quickly. Again, it's part of what parables, I mean, and what she's really teaching us to do. We can't just immediately go to what we think is obvious, right? We have to do this uncovering. We have to do this layering in, and that's what she is helping us, I think, so much to do. And I mean, I'm just trying to think about who I've read and studied who's done this as well as Amy-Jill does it.
Mhm.
Not much.
And I'm just not. So it feels, at least to me, it feels so liberating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love it. At the bottom of page 187, she said, "We are now in the 18th chapter of Luke's Gospel, and we have met numerous unlikable Pharisees and a number of quite darling tax collectors."
I love that.
But our sympathies are with the tax collectors and not with the Pharisees, and that's exactly the opposite
Yeah.
from which a first century Jewish audience would have heard the parable.
And that is worth the price of this book, right? And the time that we have spent reading and talking about it. This is exactly the opposite stance from which a first century Jewish audience would have heard the parable. We do need to sort of take off our previous lenses and break down so much of what we've learned and heard and read in order to hear this in a non-judgmental, maybe, is that right? Non-judgmental way. Go ahead, Sharon.
Well, I mean, I appreciated everything she said, and especially this. And my question, which I don't feel she ever really answered, is why is Luke doing this?
I don't think she answers that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could wonder about that.
Well, wasn't this written at about the time when the Jews needed a scapegoat and the Christians kind of became the scapegoat in terms of keep the heat off of us?
With the Romans?
And so there's reciprocal. I don't know.
What year is Luke?
He's late, I think.
And you look, I don't have it in front of me,
Yeah,
but he's not as late as John.
No.
Mark.
And see, John is the one that really provokes Jewish ire.
Yes.
But man, Luke gets a buy.
Maybe because he's Greek.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I need to tell you something at the end of the hour, Kathy.
So let's look at that's the next. We kind of have already started looking at. Two people went up to the temple to pray. The one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. So we get the history of tax collectors and then Pharisees, a brief history. And this, I think, must be like a kernel of her whole work on the Pharisees, I think. Because she's done huge work.
My favorite line is at the bottom of the page, which says the presence of the tax collector in the temple.
Where are you?
Totally, the bottom paragraph.
On page 188. Thank you.
The presence of the tax collector in the temple is therefore unexpected. In other words, you wouldn't really expect to see a tax collector in the
he's a traitor
asking for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yep, the paragraph before that is.
Yeah.
I put a big exclamation point next to that one.
Yeah.
How does that start, that paragraph?
Thus, our tax collector does not, as a few commentators insist, occupy, quote, a marginal position within society, end quote.
His problem is not that he was without power, wealth, or status, sinned against, oppressed, and marginalized. No, his problem is that he is a sinner, probably rich and agent of Rome, and as tax collector has shown no mercy to others, i.e. to the Jewish population.
Hey, folks, we're leaving for a concert in St. Paul right now. So I have to.
What are you going to hear?
This is what old people do. They go to concerts at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Amen, sister.
Sounds good.
What are you seeing?
What are you going to
St. Paul Chamber Orchestra at the Ordway.
Oh, I'm jealous.
So we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Bye,
time.
Catherine.
Bye.
Bye.
Again, the joys of living in a metropolitan area. You've got to drive 40, 50 miles for anything.
Well, from getting across the river these days is a huge,
That's true. There is that. There is that.
a huge deal. We went to see, last week, right? When my
Right.
friends were here in town, we went over to St. Paul to see these comedians. And oh my goodness, that was quite the thing itself was really, really, really fun. But getting there took some planning.
Mhm.
Okay, so our tax collector is in the temple praying. Jesus has given us an image that unsettles.
Mhm.
So part of the nature of a parable is what is unsettling, what is surprising, what is shocking. So our tax collector is in the temple praying. This is shocking.
Mhm.
This is completely. So when we come to parables, that is one of the questions that we can always ask as we sort of begin to dive into it, and then we got to do the proper contextual research in order to come up with an appropriate answer to that question.
Right.
What's unsettling in this? What is shocking? And again, she tells us she knows this stuff. So now we have our Pharisee, a brief history. Is there anything in particular that you pulled out of this brief history that you found enlightening?
Well, she does point out that Pharisees are not directly responsible for Jesus's death, that they're not part of that whole end scene with the Sanhedrin and all of that. They're kind of somewhere else.
Yeah, the last we see of the Pharisees is quite a bit before those
Before Jerusalem, really.
yeah. I think I remember.
Mostly we see them asking him questions, trapping him, but maybe they're into trapping him for their own purposes, not to go
Right.
with it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're not agents of Rome.
No.
Yeah, so they're questioning him for their own purposes. I've said that very clearly in a sermon, and I can't remember what sermon it is, that this is the last we see of the Pharisees
Yeah.
before once we're on the road to Jerusalem.
But the problem is Christians have kind of they don't pay attention to that. Pharisees are Jews. Jews are bad.
Yeah.
Jews kill Christ. I mean, you know what I mean? That is what has been, unfortunately, history.
Yeah.
And because Pharisees had some elevated social standing, they must be worse than run-of-the-mill Jews.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I read anything about Pharisees not being what the New Testament portrays them as was Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg. And she talks about that fairly regularly, and I couldn't find any of it. But if I can,
Well, the Pharisees were just really about trying to save the Jewish culture and the religion, and they had an idea of how to do that, and they just had a point of view, just like Baptists and Episcopalians, you know.
It's interesting to me that on the first paragraph on the top of page 191.
How does it start?
For the majority of Jesus's Jewish audience, the Pharisees would have been respected teachers, those who walked the walk as well as talked the talk. Josephus, a priest who found the Pharisees' voluntary organization in competition with his own inherited priestly status, mentions their interpretations of Torah designed to make ancient teachings relevant to the society of their day. I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And walking the walk and talking the talk,
Mm-hmm.
she says later that, not only did this Pharisee pride himself on keeping the 613 mitzvot, but, it was like, well, if these are good, let me go a couple better.
Yeah.
Well, weren't they known basically as building a lot of fences around the 613?
I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
I think that, Mary Lou, I think that's always been my sort of thinking about that. And I've been challenged now to maybe research that a little bit more. Maybe I'm wrong there about the Pharisees building fences in terms of purity fences. We have to, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just constantly amazed at how we have been inculcated since we were very young with these beliefs and these interpretations of things. And man, it's hard sometimes to wrap your head around something different because
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Yeah.
I'm working on it with you.
Yeah. I get images, the illustrations from that old King James Bible that
what we were shown and stuff. Well, we never had that much in Sunday school.
Well, interestingly for Jude, these arguments continue.
Oh yeah.
In the sort of steps of Jewish denominations. So are the Pharisees more like the ultra-Orthodox? The ultra-Orthodox do nothing to make the commandments more relevant to today's society.
Right.
Yeah.
Jews wanted Jesus killed, but Jews didn't kill Jesus. It was the Romans that killed him in real fact.
No.
Yeah, they wanted it. I guess you could say that the Romans followed the Judean wishes, but no, it was really the Romans that killed him.
Well, yeah, and I think in terms of the priests that wanted him out of the way, that was more self-preservation. They knew that if people started an uproar around Jesus, that the Romans were going to put it down heavily. And so I see from that point of view, it was self-preservation of the people, not just of themselves.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. Well, and so on page 198, that last paragraph of that section about the tax collectors, the Pharisees going up to the temple. So that last paragraph in that section, for both men in this parable, the temple is a place of prayer. It is a place where God is found, where fidelity can be celebrated and reconciliation found without precluding other sites for such celebration and reconciliation, where Jewish distinction can be proclaimed over and against Roman insistence on assimilation. It is this same place where Jesus' followers continued to worship after the crucifixion. So, I mean, I think what she's helping us to see is that both men were doing what sort of we might use they're called to do, to bring them to the temple. So then we have, God, I give thanks to you that I'm not like the rest of these people. And she makes this point, Amy-Jill makes this point, whatever we conclude, we should note that the address is still to God and the gratitude is still expressed to God. I mean, doesn't that just contain all of our human foibles and fragility and narcissism and selfishness and all that we are, right? I mean, we'll say that, won't we? You know, at least, at least I, fill in the blank, whatever that might be. And God really should probably, acknowledge that. Anne?
Yeah, I still like, so where she's talking about, she's in the middle, in the last two lines of that paragraph you're discussing. How we assess the Pharisee may well tell us more about ourselves than about him. And as you said, the address is still to God and the gratitude is still to God, which I think gets overlooked in so many, not that I've heard any sermons on it in forever, and that they tend to forget that, and that they go more on the selfishness attitude, the righteous attitude. So yeah, that's a really important thing.
Yeah.
And what is Luke's obsession with ritual purity?
He's a doctor.
That doesn't seem to be
We think he
to
might
bother anybody else.
Yeah. Fascinating. That's a fascinating thing.
One of those things that says more about him than about
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe he was a germaphobe.
He could
But yeah, he was maybe one of the really early ones that realized that something was wrong. That ritual purity kept people healthier. Not that, don't know what he wanted yet.
Do you think the tax collector, I have an image of the Pharisee walks out of the temple self-satisfied. How does the tax collector leave the temple? If he kind of not sneaks in, but comes in with trepidation, he enters the temple, he says his prayer that's humbling, that is remorseful. Does he feel satisfaction of being, what does he leave with? I mean, he's still a tax collector.
Yeah.
Well, and she addresses that. She says, does he go back to his old ways?
Yeah.
Or does he renounce being a tax collector?
Right. Where the Pharisees had no change of attitude at all.
Yeah.
Look at me, I'm good, I'm here, thanks God. I'm leaving now.
that's kind of
but I think that what she's saying is that the Pharisee leaves the temple saying, thank you, God, for letting me continue on the righteous path. What does the Pharisee say?
Yeah.
And she doesn't have an answer for that.
No.
That's actually back to the pearl of great price, isn't it? If the tax collector goes in and repents totally, then he's changed in that, just like with the pearl of great price, you can't be a merchant if you've sold everything you got.
Yeah.
And so
So
if that's true repentance, maybe he leaves different.
Yeah. Maybe Amy-Jill often says, Jesus told parables because he wanted people to be disturbed and to think. And maybe that's the bottom line here.
Yeah.
Which would be, here's another wild one. If he does go back, does it mean, well, remember Matthew says that when the tax collector, that he's going to restore the money to people. So maybe he goes back to the same job, but is more honest about it. And maybe we're just guessing there,
Of course we're guessing.
That's all we can do is guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
We should have a Mishnah session.
Yeah. Well,
where we argue about what's right and what's not.
Yeah.
That would be
we don't have the 600 and some rules to go by.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so let's move on to that. But the tax collector at a distant standing did not wish to raise the eyes to the heaven, but he beat his breast, saying, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner." So I was quite taken by her talk on purity, right? Her writing about purity. And she says this parable has absolutely nothing to do with purity.
Oh, yeah, no.
The publican's problem is his profession, not his purity. It's a fascinating statement, I think. The implications for that.
Well, yeah, it calls into question what we do for a living.
It does. I think it does.
Yeah. Or what we invest in.
Was
Yeah.
is Zacchaeus also an example of that? It never says what he does, but he says he will give half. You assume he's wealthy. He has him to dinner. Says he will give all his, half of his money to whatever. So he's talking more about what you do. Well, here's a real life example. My beloved son-in-law got away from this Milwaukee job, thankfully, at night, and his working days, but he's working and helping build this Beloit casino. Now, Anne is not in favor of that sort of thing, but Anne is extremely grateful, and all he's doing is the HVAC, the heating, the air conditioning, the pipes, the whatever it is he does. So, is that an example of today that he's in a situation where maybe it's not the best possible outcome for the people who are going to come in and lose their money there? On the other hand, he's doing honest work. He's an honest person. He's gives when he
Supporting his family. Yeah.
gives it. So, there's a today's thing. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's close in my opinion.
No, I don't know.
Hey, the Native Americans are going to make bunches of money off of it. They are the ones that are involved.
And some of them share that really well.
Yes. So, it was the tax, we don't know we're assuming that Luke is assuming the biases of the people who are listening to him, or maybe the disciples, or Jesus is.
Well, at the bottom of page 206, paragraph beginning with Dennis Ham, professor of New Testament at Creighton, the last sentence of that paragraph says, "It is in the temple that the tax collector believes he can find atonement, and he is correct. We have no reason to doubt the tax collector's sincerity. He bravely entered the temple, where he knew that other worshipers might regard him as a collaborationist, an extorter, or a rogue. He admits his sin and his need for mercy."
Wow.
I'm sorry.
I think that's a profound statement, and I have met these people, who would say, by their, maybe not so much, well, who find it near impossible to come into a church because what they believe, others believe about them. Sometimes that word that gets used is hypocrite. All these people here are hypocrites. They don't acknowledge their own sinfulness. I think it's just exactly these two people, the Pharisee and the tax collector, who are human beings, basically human beings, and human beings sin. And sinning is turning our backs on the God who loves us and who loves us so much to be willing to be one of us. So I think that the courage that it takes for somebody to walk into a church is absolutely huge, huge. To be able to come into a church and to say, you know, this is what I am. This is who I am. I don't know what I'm doing about it.
Yeah.
Or my grief is so overwhelming. You know, all I can do with it is cry, right? The courage it takes to walk into a church with all of is amazing to me. And I think I think that tax collector is there, right? This tax collector is in that place.
And maybe as a current example, if somebody from ICE walked into church.
Wow.
Well, I'd ask him to lay his gun outside.
And take off his mask.
Take off the mask.
Probably take off the mask.
But I mean, that would take a lot of courage.
Yeah, but still be a part of it. Well, I remember one time, I think it was you, Kathy, and I don't remember who it was a recent widow who said this person didn't want to come back to Trinity because all this person would do would sit in the back and cry. And you or us said, that's perfectly okay. That's what we're there for. That's the fight. And we don't see that in here, in this story, but maybe that was part of the tax collector. Who knows how long it took for him to get the courage to come up
To come to this temple. Exactly.
I mean, to go through past the court of the Gentiles. Was he Jewish? Was he a you know, the court of the Gentiles was only for them, I guess. So if he came into the temple himself, he was Jewish faith. How long it took for him to actually do that walk.
He admits his sin and his need for mercy. And then we read her translation. This one is justified alongside that one.
That blows our minds.
Yeah.
So she's not saying that the Pharisee is going away I don't want to use justified because the way Luke translates it is so different, you know, because he says, this man went down to his, and I'm reading NIV, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other.
Right. And her translation is
alongside.
Quite different. Because everyone who exalts themselves will be,
please.
Those who humble themselves will be exalted.
Excuse me, I have a phone call I have to take.
Okay, thanks, Jay. That word, I think that the whole exalted word, maybe even, we don't understand the word justified very well, right? It's such a evangelical co-opted word, I think, that, you know, what I always, whenever I hear that word justified, I think about when I'm typing a document, I have the choice to have it centered or to have it lined up on the left or lined up on the right or justified.
That's good.
And that is God's choice for us, sort of to bring us into line, bring us into that. And the metaphor, of course, breaks down because that's God's activity, not our activity. Whereas taking my document, that's my activity. But this one is justified alongside that one. And then this word exalted, over and against humbled. Those are problematic words. I find them to, So but it's all of us, right? That's who we are again as humans.
The New English Bible, interesting. It says, it was this man, I tell you, and not the other, who went home acquitted of his sins.
So it assumes the Pharisee was not acquitted of his sin.
Yes. Yeah. I think it more than assumes it.
Yeah,
That's a New International Version.
No, it's the New English Bible.
You know, and it brings us to the place where she starts every single one of these chapters, with do your very best, Christian people, to let go of everything you've ever learned about Pharisees and Jews, because it just might not be true. That might be through patristic lenses. It's through power lenses. It's through all sorts of kinds of things that might possibly not be true.
I will see you next week, people. Are we going to do a new chapter?
I think we can move on to the next.
Chapter 7.
Laborers in the vineyard.
Wine.
Another tough one.
All right.
And I know Anne's gonna leave, but I don't want to leave us alone on
Okay, I'm waiting.
on that very end, because my word on page 212, the last paragraph of the chapter, again, she does this over and over and over. She's brilliant, and then she has this amazing brilliancy in that last
yes.
the last piece of truth that she just throws out there. That we are all our brothers and sisters keeper. Living in a community is another form of group. I loved her example of group work. We all have something to contribute, even if what we give is the opportunity for someone else to provide us a benefit. If we take more seriously this necessary interrelationship, we might be more inclined to consider others, because our actions, whether for ill or for good, will impact them. And if our good deeds aid someone else rather than begrudge them, why not celebrate all who are justified, whatever.
Including the tax collector.
Well, yeah.
And the Pharisee.
And the Pharisee.
Because, I don't think I'll ever preach this again without saying this one is justified alongside that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no over and against here. There is no. Yeah, go ahead, Mary Lou.
Well, I was just going to say, but how like us, we don't like that.
No.
Because we want to be superior.
Yeah. We're good.
So how these parables just speak so deeply into our humanity.
Yeah.
And how come they do that? How can they speak so deeply into our humanity? They can do that because God is in Jesus in the flesh. So, there's so much sort of power in that, good, wonderful power in that, that these parables are the word in the flesh.
Amazing. I will see you all next week.
Speak directly into our humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like sit up and pay attention.
Well, yeah, sit up and pay attention. It's listen people to who you are. Listen people to the stories of where you've been and where you are and where you're going. I'm starting a Thursday night in-person Bible study, and we're starting with Peter Enns, because Why not?
With what the Bible actually
Yeah.
says,
I mean, if I
or
want
how
to,
the Bible actually works.
yeah, if I want to teach people how to read the Bible, I have decided that is the best place, best place to start. But I mean, it's that, um, this story tells us who we are, and who we are grows and changes and matures. So why would we ever believe our sacred story would not do the very same thing?
Mhm.
Anyway, oh my gosh, I started preaching. Sorry. There we go.
Are you going to record? Are you going to record those?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
Mm.
I do have a suggestion for our next book, and I wanted to throw it out there because I bought it and have read it. Voices of Advent by Matthew Skinner.
Oh.
And what he's doing here, I just think this would be a really fun Advent. So we'll finish. We'll might have to do a couple things. I don't know. I did map it out. Now I don't have my map. Oh, here's my map. Let's see. What I'm thinking is that we will finish our short story, our Amy-Jill make our concluding time on November 14th. And that jumps us into Advent on November 21st. And so what he does is he's organized thematically the stories we read during Advent. And I just think that would be a great.
Yeah, sounds good. And we liked the last book.
Yeah, he does. He's spoken about how his favorite season of the year is Advent. Not Christmas, but Advent. So, and very different from Christmas. And so he writes about all that in the introduction and the preface in the introduction. And so, yeah, I just thought maybe that might be a kind of fun one to bring us through Advent. And we can think about what's next after that.
Okay.
I'll send that to Sharon. Did you get that information?
I did indeed.
Okay, good. Then Sharon can send that out as what we might be doing. Okay?
Beans.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank
Love
you.
y'all.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
week.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Feel better, Sharon.
Thank you.